everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to my art journaling channel. Today we're going to be looking at using some collage papers and altering our images to fit what we want. So this is the original collage paper that came from Natalie May Scrapbooking, an Australian company. It's a beautiful image. I'm gluing onto a page that already had a little bit of gesso on it and some metallic paint, and just gluing it down using gel medium. So it's a very, very detailed image in itself, but I wanted to sort of add some colour and add some pattern to it. And I suppose that's what I mean by altering it. Not necessarily the whole face, but incorporating it into the page so it looks seamless. So first of all, I'm actually going in and putting some detail into her eyes. I find if I've got the eyes worked out on a piece, that helps me focus in on them, whether that's just putting the whites in the eyes or putting a bit of an iris around it, just to help pull it all together. And then going in with some metallic paint and using this small diamond stencil, and again just incorporating that stenciling over the page but also over the image. So I'm not afraid to stencil over where the image is, because that's going to help incorporate it in a little bit further into the page and make it part of the page itself. So this is using a bit of a lace pattern from Tim Holtz stencil, and I'm using sort of these very rich bohemian type colours, so the fuchsia and the metallic gold, to sort of bring a bit of depth and a bit of warmth into the image itself. And going in with a darker blue as well, and again just going through my stash of stencils. I'm using the Tim Holtz tag stencils mainly because the scale of these stencils is a little bit smaller. Usually I go for quite big, bold, chunky stencils, but sometimes having that sort of the delicate stencils really works for you. And I liked how it's sort of balanced up on this. Now I'm going in with my Distress watercolor pencils and putting some shading, putting some color onto the image itself. I'm being fairly sketchy with the lines and mixing and matching colors, so going sort of for those warm honey tones, then adding a little bit of bluish purplish around the shadows just to pop her face out from those and to create a little bit of depth. Putting in some white highlights. I really like the white pencil because it does actually come up quite opaque and quite white, which sometimes I really struggle to get on with using pencils. So once I've sort of gone over, I kind of sometimes use the white pencil as a bit of a blender as well. I put it back over the top and sort of blend things together. Same with the light skin tones. It helps sort of smooth everything out a little bit. I also went in with some of the other areas on the image and started to add some colour there too, to some of the feathers, some of the headpiece parts, to make it all tie together. Once I'd finished doing that, I'm then going to go in and add a little bit more colour, and to do that I'm using the Lindy's Magicals. Now this is something I don't use very often, and I get a little bit scared using them because I don't have much control with them. So Magicals are a powdered watercolor. They're highly pigmented. You only need a very little bit. It goes a long way. So you can see just that tiny little bit of powder, and I'm just getting so much payout from it. I'm trying to be really careful with avoiding the image of the girl. I'm using a bit of a piece of watercolor paper paper towel, to sop up any excess. I'm also changing it up, particularly the darker colours, the blue. I'm actually putting the water down first and then dipping my brush into the powder. So I've actually got it on my brush instead of sprinkling it over the top. While I do like that sort of randomish look that you get from sprinkling, I find that I get very heavy-handed with it, so I just need to be a little bit careful. One of the reasons I love having the acrylic paint in the background, however, is because it acts as a little bit of a resist for the magicals or for any paints, and you can still see those colours popping up through. But to add a little bit of white space over the top, I've gone back in and re-stenciled some of the diamonds over the top. Now what you will find, because the magicals are a water reactive product, it will stain the gesso, so you can see those beautiful colours coming through the gesso. It's not a crisp white colour, but there's enough there that you get an idea of what's going on. With my metallic pen again, I'm going back in and putting in some details with a gold and a silver pen. I love how her hair now pops off the page just by having that little bit of extra detail. And again, going around those leaves or feathers coming off her hair with the silver pen just makes it look a little bit magical, which I love. And it's amazing to sort of see from when you first start with a very plain, well, it wasn't a plain image, it's a beautiful image, but you know, just a black and white image glued down into your book. You can add so much colour and detail to it, just using stamps and stencils and pens. Now I'm going in with my Stabilo oil pencil, again just to add a little bit more depth and definition to some of the areas in the image, and that will help create some of those deeper shadows as well, so you get that strong contrast. I always like it because you can sharpen it up to a pretty good point. I've also got a white Stabilo oil pencil, which again can be really, really handy when you need to put some detail into some smaller areas, and the red as well. So it does come in about 5 or 6 different colours. I do have all of them because I find them really, really useful. I like the way they blend. But if you don't have access to them, or have only got access to a limited amount, I'd definitely recommend getting a black, and if you've got an opportunity to get the white as well. Yeah, so that's sort of putting in that extra detail into the hair and into the figures, that bird at the top as well. So once I finished that, I then wanted to put a quote on the page, and I'm just writing it out with my Stabilo oil pencil first. The reason for that is I want to do it in sort of cursive handwriting, and while I'm fairly confident with my lettering, block lettering, I do like to think about how I'm going to do my cursive lettering. So by writing it out with my Stabilo oil pencil first, that just gives me a little bit of security, I suppose, to know where I'm going to put everything. Once I've finished, I'll go back and thicken up the downstrokes of my letters just to balance them out a little bit, and make sure everything is as it should be. So you can see that just helps pop it off the page a little bit. Then obviously drying it just to make sure it's all where it's supposed to be, and going back in as I always do with a white pen and putting the highlight on each of the letters. So the highlight can go on any side of your letters as long as it's consistent. I choose to do it on the bottom left hand side of all my letters. No rhyme or reason why, it's just that's where I've always put it, so I know I can be consistent with it. Some people do it on the top right hand side of their letters. Again, no right or wrong answer, just as long as you're consistent. If you sort of swap halfway through, that's when you're going to think, oh, that doesn't look quite right. Just on her forehead, she had a bit of a pattern, whether that's from sort of the leaves or or like a headdress of some kind, so I decided to put a little bit of scribble onto that just to highlight it somewhat, and then going in and just putting a little bit of pen work into the shadows and onto the highlights, just so it really, really stands out, so you've got this very graphic image in the end. So you've got a completely different image from what you've begun with, using lots of different media to sort of blend it all in together. But it's so much fun to go in and change and alter and adapt so it all fits in. So you can see those beautiful lashes she's got, the forehead dressing, and how all that metallic helps it pop off the page. So I hope you have a go at doing this with any collage image you've got. Just keep altering and adding and trying different media on it to create your own piece of art. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, bye for now.